that's very condescending.
Yeah.
I would bring a slightly different perspective as to what arts can do, right? When I think about this bringing of happiness and bringing of depression, then a large part of this has to do with the disappearance of the middle communities. And of course, art is a giver of meaning to a certain extent. It makes up history, it defines communities. And so artists in principle can have a role of creating local communities. Having more community festivals, being a group of individuals around a local identity. And I guess in the States that's hard because people travel around and it creates these very large communities, even arts communities, which suffer from the same problem, which is that millions of people are trying to vie for top spots in what is basically a very small top layer. And so that creates a lot of losers. But I think that if we think of art's positive message, it's not to play that national game. It is to play this, supporter of local communities type game. I think that is much more where I see a positive and improving role for arts.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would veer away from much of what you seem to champion, of sort of, competing at the national level.
But I think to that point, and I agree with you there, is that it creates more awareness at that middle level and creates, it forms that community that kind of disbanded, and it kind of reinvigorates that community.
Yeah, and you want it to be physically there, so
Yes.
that basically you can't visit it on Facebook.
Yep.
Right? You
Yep.
basically want artists to cut that off.
Yep.
Basically, you can only be part of that community if you're not on the sphere.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's a great museum, I'm guessing some of you read her blog. Nina Simon has a blog called Museum 2.0. Do any of you know this, or have you read it? Yeah. So she turned around basically the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, and she has this analogy that she talks about where she said, you ever notice if people go out walking their dogs, that the two dogs will bump into each other, and then the two humans attached to the dogs will talk to one another. She said basically dogs become this great conduit to connect people that would otherwise never speak to one another to speak. She said, when I went to the museum, and her background was in media, not in the arts, she said, that was my goal, was like, how do we make the stuff in this place like the dogs? The thing that makes two people who would not normally speak to one another come together. And so her goal, she actually wrote a post not too long ago about target marketing versus trying to be for everybody. And she said, we've actually determined that we don't want to do target marketing. We don't want these, sort of really siloed groups of people to come and just be with other people that look like them. My goal with every single thing I do is to get the people across the community that would not normally be in the same room together to be in the same room together, and get them, more importantly, talking to each other. And so it's a completely, I think, actually pretty radical idea compared to where we've been the last 20 years or so. I want to open it up now to you guys, anybody who has questions. How much, can you remind me